Hello everyone. My name is Sir Review. I have I'm just starting my channel and I made an intro to my channel if you want to watch that too. Um but before I do any gameplays or reviews or anything like that, I want you to, get to know me. I want you to kind of like get all the stuff that I like and don't like. So today I'm going to make my top 10 best movies I've seen list. And towards the end, towards when I get to my first one, I will mention some movies that were really close to being in my top 10 list but didn't quite make it. So I'm gonna go through my list, and I might actually kind of glance down at times because I have the list right here, and I have a terrible memory, so I'm sorry about that. So I might glance down a couple of times just to be sure if I didn't forget anything. So here we go. My number 10 favorite movie. Well, it's not really a movie, it's more of a series of movies, and that's the Toy Story trilogy, all three of the movies. Now, I know there's a fourth one coming out. I am kind of curious to see how they go with that. I mean, I am kind of upset because obviously Disney hasn't really been fantastic with sequels so far. But in the past, they made movies like Toy Story and Toy Story 2. Those movies really introduced me to the whole like Disney and Pixar, realm of all that stuff. I mean, I never was a huge fan of movies until I actually watched Toy Story and then Toy Story 2. And after watching those movies, I actually really wanted to see more kids movies. And that's when I began to watch Finding Nemo and Monsters Inc. and all those other movies that were actually, really fun to watch. And I still love watching Toy Story to this day. I mean, I even watch Toy Story 3 all the time because those movies not only make me get very emotional, but they actually make me remember the times when I was a kid and how I used to just enjoy watching those kinds of movies. And they definitely deserve being in my top 10 list. Number 9 is The Legend of the Fall. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure many of you have seen that movie. It is quite an impressive movie. And yeah, some people say it's impressive, some people say it's fantastic. I think it is an amazing movie. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of horrors because, well, I was never into the horror slash drama stuff, but now I gotten into the horror section and I now gotten into drama as well. This movie isn't really a horror though; it's more of a drama. Many people say that many drama movies have kind of a horror and disturbing edge to them. Not this movie. No, this movie is pure drama, and I'm obviously not a huge fan of drama movies, but I've actually gotten to like this movie. Not only because Brad Pitt delivered a stellar performance, but he also, you know, um, portrayed the character well. But everyone else's characters were really well developed, and the whole theme of the movie was great. I'm not going to spoil anything, just so you know, for any of these movies. The theme was well, the ending was fantastic. It was just a drama movie that just love watching, and I still love watching it to this day. Number 8 is one of the classic movies called The Matrix. And for those of you who haven't seen it, but I encourage those of you who haven't seen it to watch it. It is a really good movie. It really kind of took the whole action genre to kind of another level. I mean, that's how they introduced like the slow-mo action stuff. That's how they introduced the whole, you know, jumping off walls and like dodging bullets and all that stuff. They really introduced that in such a way. Now, I know many people say the concept has been done before, everyone living in a computer and in like a computer stuff like that. But it hasn't been as well done as this movie. I mean, this movie was done so well because not only were the characters so well developed, but all the action was so well done. I mean, it makes you kind of sit on the edge of your seat thinking, what's going to happen next? What kind of scene are they going to go for next? It's a movie that I still just love watching to this day because, well, it's just one of the action movies that will just stick with you in how, people say it's so original, yet it still has a concept that's used all the time. But I personally think it's a real original movie, and altogether, it's great. So for those of you who haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. It is a really good movie. Number 7, Braveheart. Oh my gosh, where do I begin? Braveheart has been one of the first action slash medieval movies I have seen at all. Like when I was only 8 years old, I watched that movie, And I gotta say, it was a gore fest. I mean, I've always been able to handle gore and all that stuff, but people say that's quite a gore fest. But I don't look at it as at the gore. I look at the whole concept of it. I mean, if you think about it, Mel Gibson delivered a fantastic performance, and he delivered the characters so well. They made such great CGI. They made the war scenes look real. That's the stuff that they want you to see. They want to make you realize how real this stuff was and how crazy it was. And many people say it's all about World War One or Civil War where you see the true bloodiness of war. No, it's in movies like this where you realize that even back then, war was just a terrible thing. And basically, they say war is hell. And I agree when it comes to seeing that movie. So, yeah, I encourage any of you who haven't seen that movie to see that one as well. Mel Gibson was just fantastic. Number 6 is ironically The Sixth Sense. And no, I did not put that as number 6 just because it has the word 6 in it. No, I put it in there for a reason. This was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, a guy who began his career with great movies, including this one, about a boy who could communicate with dead people. Now, many people say it does have a horror edge to it, but I personally don't think it had that big of a horror kind of part to it. I mean, sure, there were some scenes that kind of made me jump a bit because they kind of surprised me, but I think it was more of a drama, because it's basically about a psychiatrist who wants to help a kid, but he doesn't know how, so he wants to learn more about the kid, and then the kid develops more of a relationship with the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is played by Bruce Willis, in case you're unaware, and I think he did a fantastic job in that movie. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan started his career with great movies such as this. He made The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, The Village. He made those 3 really good movies, but then it kind of went downhill, where he began making movies like The Happening and Signs and The Last Airbender, well, I don't think Signs was that bad, but there were some concepts to it that either made it boring or just unrelatable. The Last Airbender and The Happening were 2 movies where I just watched and I'm like, what happened to Shyamalan? I mean, what happened to the guy who made one of the greatest drama movies of all time? And now he made movies like these. Now, I think he's starting to regain himself. He's starting to kind of establish himself because he made movies like Split and The Visit. And of course, many people agree those movies were a little disturbing, but I think they were really good when it comes to like the development, not just in the characters, but in the story. And how like he didn't rely too much on a twist ending as he used to. So I think he can regain himself as long as he just eases off of all the stuff he used to work on and kind of try kind of a new edge. So I think The Sixth Sense was a great drama movie. Once again, I'm not a huge fan of dramas, but that one totally deserved to be in my top 10 list. Number 5 is Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Now, I'm sure many of you who watch this will be like, well, what about the first and the second? Surely they can be in there too. But here's my response to that. I love Lord of the Rings altogether. I mean, Lord of the Rings is by far one of my favorite franchises of all time. But the Two Towers and the Fellowship of the Ring were great, but they didn't deliver that big of an impact as the Return of the King did. Now, many people will say, but Return of the King had such a long ending. But I think it deserved to have that long ending because of how big of a journey they led us through with the first movie and then all the way to the third movie. They had such a big journey that I think the ending should be stretched out a bit. That way people can just remember all the fantastic stuff that happened in the franchise. That's one of the main reasons why I put Return of the King as one of my top 10 movies, because it had delivered such an amazing conclusion to such an amazing franchise that I just love altogether. So, yeah, for those of you who don't watch Lord of the Rings, please watch all the movies in order: Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and then Return of the King. Those movies are great, based on the books by J.R.R. Tolkien. They're really good. I encourage any of you to watch them. Now down to number 4, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Oh my gosh. I remember when I first saw the Terminator, I watched that and I was just thinking to myself, imagine what people in the 80s were like when they were watching this. Thinking of like a machine that could travel back in time to just kill one person and then change the entire future. Now that movie was good, but nowhere near as good as the second one, directed by James Cameron, called Terminator 2: Judgment Day. This one took a different kind of turn to it. It's where Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is actually the hero, ironically. And I'm not going to give too much away, although the bad guy is much cooler. Not only because the actor who plays as him is super good, I mean, I forgot his name. I think it'll come to me later. Where not only the actor was well done, the CGI was pretty cool for its time. The character development was incredible. How young John Connor was able to, kind of grow a relationship with a machine that was supposed to protect him, and how they kind of grow this mutual bond that towards the end, I'm not going to spoil anything about the ending, but the ending just made me tear up so much because of how big of an impact these two characters had on me. And of course, they did keep Sarah Connor in there from the first Terminator, which is cool. And the CGI was well done, like I said. And I did think it just deserves to be in my top 10 list because of how big, how emotional it can get. Because James Cameron has been known to just do such emotional drama and not even make a kid's film. It's just another film that makes you get all emotional inside because of how the characters are developed, how the story is done, and like all the moments that they share. It's just a very well done movie. So it's definitely there. Those of you who haven't seen the Terminator franchise, watch those first two movies. They're totally worth it. Number 3 is The Dark Knight. Now, before I get into that, to answer any questions, yes, I am a huge Batman fan. In fact, Batman is my favorite hero ever. I've always loved Batman ever since I was a little kid because he really stood out to me. And one of the greatest movies ever is The Dark Knight, in my opinion. Now, sure, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises were pretty good for this franchise, but The Dark Knight did the best, not only because it delivered such a great Joker played by Heath Ledger, but because of how well Batman was kind of developed in this, and how he had to go through all this kind of like, all these tests and stuff with like Harvey Dent and like the Joker, and how he has to cope with all this like stuff being put onto him. I mean, it makes you really think about that. And back to the Joker. The Joker was just fantastic. I mean, I think Heath Ledger just did a fantastic job in general as the Joker. Now, obviously, it did kind of leave a too big of an impact on him. But that's what the Joker is. It's really hard to be the Joker because he's such a character that, with so much, stuff going on around him. It's hard because he's meant to be kind of an over-the-top character. That's kind of what he's meant to be. So Heath Ledger was able to deliver that well, even though it did kind of come at a cost. But it was a great movie. I highly recommend those who haven't seen it to watch it. It's obviously my it's my third favorite movie of all time. So it's a very great movie, and it totally delivers my hero, Batman, in a fantastic way. Now time for number 2. Now it's 2 movies, but I think they both deserve a spot here, and that's Alien and Aliens. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the Alien franchise, many people say Alien is one of the greatest horror franchises ever, and I agree. I think Alien is possibly the best horror movie ever. I mean, the first movie, Alien, was basically about a group of space people, like a bunch of people who are out in space trying to, deliver a cargo or something. And then they come across a distress signal by an old crashed ship, but the distress signal is too old to have ever been by a human. So they go there only to discover the horrors that await them on that abandoned ship. And one of them comes on board with a monster, a killing machine that, that can kill anything. And it's basically the perfect organism with an armored body, acid for blood, a double mouth, large intelligence, excellent hearing, and basically one of the craziest tales you'll ever see. And it's none other than the Xenomorph. Those things are not only terrifying, but such a cool kind of way it's kind of hard to describe what I'm trying to say here. I think I just gotta say, it's one of those perfect organisms that is delivered in such a way where you're just like, oh my gosh, that thing is horrifying. But not only because of the way it looks, but because of how unstoppable it is. It's an unstoppable organism that will stop at nothing until anything that stands in its path is wiped out. And then there's the second movie, Aliens. This one delivered, some more horror, but this one delivered more of a sci-fi one, where Ripley was picked up by a group of Marines. And now Ripley was the main character in the first one, so she's back again, played by Sigourney Weaver, and she is back, and she gets picked up by some Colonial Marines, and some of the best ones are like Vasquez and Hudson and Hicks. All those guys are just incredible, and you don't want them to die because they don't fully like develop them so much. They don't focus on their development. But because of the way you're kind of sympathetic with them, it's actually just kind of a way of saying, you don't want these characters to die. You want them to make it through. And you know what happens. Some of them do die. I'm not going to say who, but yeah, some of them do die along the way. But it's just a great way to deliver, like, not only the horror, but the sci-fi. And then they introduce the infamous queen of the xenomorphs. Because in the first one, you're kind of wondering, how did those eggs get on that ship? How did those xenomorph eggs get there? Well, they had to have been delivered by something big, and it was none other than the Xenomorph Queen. Now, basically, this one takes place in a different place. This one takes place in like some sort of colony. Forgot what it was called. I mean, I'm an alien nerd, but I can't even remember what that place was called. And underneath the colony was an alien nest, and they were unaware of it. But those two are fantastic movies. I loved them so much. So now we're going on. But before I get to my number one favorite movie of all time, I'm gonna do some kind of like honorable mentions, but kind of. They're basically movies that almost made it into my top 10 list, but didn't quite. So here we go. One of them was Zootopia. That's another fantastic Disney movie that I just absolutely love. In fact, it made it onto my top 10 list last year. It made it onto my top 10 list of 2016. And that was a really good movie. And the other ones would be like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises. Two were great movies, but didn't quite have enough to make it into top 10 list. Some others are American Sniper and Black Hawk Down, all those kinds of movies, where they leave like such lasting impacts on you because you realize what these military guys go through. But I didn't feel the urge to fully put them into my top 10 list. I mean, and all these other movies could go on for a while because I've seen tons of great movies that would have been great to have in my top 10 list. But for now, I'm going to go down to my number one list. And my number one movie of all time is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. And now, obviously, once you hear that, you think immediately, this guy is a Star Wars nerd. He's definitely a Star Wars nerd. And you're right, I am. I love Star Wars to death. Star Wars is basically my childhood. I grew up watching Star Wars, and I still watch Star Wars, and I want to see more Star Wars. Everything Star Wars I love. I just love Star Wars. And The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite, and I'm pretty sure almost every Star Wars fan loves The Empire Strikes Back the best. Because not only because of how dark it is and how cool Darth Vader is developed, but because of the way the characters kind of learn to grow relationships with each other and how dark they make it. And they realize, like, not everything in space has to be, just horror like Aliens or all goofy like Star Trek. But they can make it dark too, and that's what they did with The Empire Strikes Back. This movie gave 10 out of 10, did not question anything about it. It was great, practically flawless. And I, for one, encourage anyone who hasn't seen Star Wars will watch it. They will immediately become some sort of nerd involving Star Wars. I can almost guarantee that. Well, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned because I will sometime next week make a top 10 list of my favorite games. And I'm really excited to do that too. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and tell your friends about my channel. And also look for my friend Caleb Malden, and his channel is called Nerdy Bros Gaming and Company, unless he changed it. I mean, I don't know, but look for Nerdy Bros Gaming Company. He's a great guy, one of my best friends, and he does some great gameplay. And stay tuned because not long after I do my top 10 list for stuff, I will begin to do some gameplay videos of stuff like Overwatch, Destiny, Battlefront, all games like that. So I am really looking forward to that, and yeah, I'll see you guys around. See ya.